Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Simnaya. Online, I hope you are doing great. So I came across a video where this young man was talking about how black people and white people do not live in the same United States, like they do not live in the same America, right? That you and I know that white people, um, everything about them, I mean, their mistake, anything about them and their mistakes are lessons. But when it comes to people that look like me, anything that happens to us goes to the record, including with the police. Black people do not get that protection that every other person gets. I remember I put up a video about an ICE being arrested. Did you people see how he got arrested? Something like that probably would not have happened to someone that looked like me, and he was like quietly arrested. But I will leave it at that. I've been saying for a longer time that the system is not broken. The system is actually working the way it was designed. And each time I talk about how United States, I mean, like the judiciary system, there is one for people that look like me, and there is one for other people. I've been asking myself, how did my people meet these people? Sometimes I ask this question. Sometimes I am like, how have you people been living with them for decades? But yeah, it is what it is. Let's get into this video.
We don't live in the same America. There's one for white people, and then there's one for us. And theirs, mistakes are lessons. And ours, mistakes are records, right? In theirs, police are protection. In ours, police are presence, right? Two societies built side by side, but only one gets to call itself normal. They tell us to rise through education, but our schools are funded by property taxes. That means your future depends on your zip code, right? You getting me? If your neighborhood is poor, your school is too. That's not a flaw in the system. That is the system. Underfunded schools, over-policed blocks, and a pipeline that starts with suspension and ends in incarceration. But then they say just work hard. But they built the ladder on a tilted floor, right? They set the standards too. Beauty that favors straight hair and pale skin. Professionalism that demands we tuck away our tongues. Articulate speech that means sound white. A smile that hides anger, a tone that reassures. They teach us to bleach not just our hair, but our being, right? That's the real assimilation. The slow trade of self for survival, for acceptance. And every time we perform it, we keep their world spinning. But we can't heal inside of a house built on harm. We can't do that now. We have to start to unlearn. We remove the white man's lens from our reflection, right? We stop treating his comfort as our compass. You feeling me? We stop measuring worth by how well we mimic them. Deconditioning means remembering our natural state before we were taught to doubt it. It's refusing to play by rules written to shrink us. It's choosing to be whole even if it means being seen as too much. Because the truth is, we were never meant to fit into their version of order. We were meant to build our own, a system where rhythm isn't unprofessional, where rage isn't criminal, where our existence isn't exceptional, it's assumed. Deconditioning isn't rejection for the sake of rebellion, it's recovery, right? It's the moment you wake up and realize the problem was never you. It was the world that called your reflection too loud when it was only telling the truth.
Especially the African American experience. It's literally not duplicated anywhere on earth in history. African Americans are a completely unique phenomenon as a people. Who they are culturally, what their history is, what their experience is, isn't duplicated anywhere on earth. You don't know where you came from. You don't know what country you came from. You don't know what culture you came from. You don't know what language you came from. You don't know what your religion was before. You, like I said before, you're more American than anyone because you don't have any other identity. Yeah. Actually, your entire identity is American-based. That's not the case of anyone else. I'm Irish American. I'm German American. I'm Italian American. I'm Jewish American. I'm this or that, the other. You can say African American, but you don't know anything about Africa. You don't even know which part of Africa. Africans don't call themselves that because I know my tribe. I have my language. I have my region, my country, my whatever. Like me saying European American. I'm not European. I'm specifically Irish and German. But you can't say that. You are American. You're the original Americans. You know? Everyone else is immigrants. You can't even be called immigrants. Yeah. You know? You're originally American. And your culture is as close to being the indigenous culture of America as there can be without you being the indigenous people. You know? You're the indigenous people of the entity called America. Called the United States of America. Everything else came from elsewhere. Your culture is the only one that came from right there. Because you were cut off from everything else. You know? There's nobody else like that. There's nobody else like that in the world. There's no other culture like that in the world.
Black Americans, I love y'all. Everything I do out in these social media streets is for y'all. It's for our community.
Ever wonder why racism and white privilege really exist? It's not just about hate. It's about identity, or more accurately, the lack of it. See, one of the biggest problems with decolonization is, what do you do with the colonizers? It's a fair question, especially if, like me, you live in a country built on colonization. Because we, the descendants of settlers, are stuck in this strange identity crisis. We've lived here for centuries, but we've never actually belonged to the land we're on. We treat it like a trophy from some conquest that never really happened. We ravage, strip mine, harvest massive tracts of timber, and we pollute this land with barely a second thought. We do that exactly because we never really connected to it. We exploit it because it's only valuable to us as a commodity, for our personal gain. And then there's the purposeful erasure of tens of thousands of years of indigenous history and the harm we've caused the delicate balance of nature and its animals since colonization. It's further clear evidence of that fact. At the same time, colonizers don't have any connection to their ancestral lands either. For example, my ancestors hail from Ireland and Germany, and I know very little about either of those countries. I can't even imitate my genetically native Irish tongue or speak German. I have no connection to Europe. Not culturally, not spiritually, nothing. That thread was cut a long time ago. See, colonialism didn't just erase indigenous connection to the land, it also severed ours to anywhere else. So if we don't belong to the land we live on, and we don't belong to the lands we came from, who are we? That's why colonial identity so often shows up as either overt racism or indignant privilege. Because when your identity is paper thin, you lash out at anyone who challenges it. And I'm sure the comment section of this video will prove that point nicely. But deep down, colonial people want to belong. That's why we obsess over ancestry tests and family trees. We're trying to build a history that was erased to justify our own. Because identity, like culture, is built on history. But colonial countries are continually erasing their history to prop up the justification for colonization in the first place. We delete the history to maintain a fake identity. But no identity can grow because we keep deleting our history. So colonial identity never grows deeper than surface level, or what I like to call the sports and barbecue culture. Our real history is full of horror and hate, which we bury shallow and keep pretending it isn't there. And that open wound is left to fester and poison every generation that follows. But here's the hopeful part. It doesn't have to be that way. Decolonization and land back doesn't mean pack up and leave. They mean show up differently. They mean acknowledging the real history of this land, the pain we've caused, and building a system that values justice over dominance. Because if we do that, if we finally stop hiding from our past, maybe we'll all stop wondering who we are and start building a future where everyone actually belongs. Anyway, something to think about. Peace out. And if you're not already following me, you should. It's going to be.
You know, America has this habit of trying to find ways to criminalize black kids. In the 90s, they called them super predators. And that one word, that lie, it reshaped laws. It filled prisons. It built careers off of fear. And even when they admitted they were wrong, nothing changed for the people who paid the price. The term came from John DeLulio, a Princeton political scientist. And in 1995, he warned that a wave of radically impulsive, remorseless youth, mostly black and brown, of course, were coming to kill and maim without remorse. He called them super predators, and the media ate it up. The New York Times, Newsweek, Time Magazine, they all ran with it. And once Americans got scared, politicians saw opportunity. Because fear sells, fear funds, fear wins elections. Now, here's where it gets tricky, right? Joe Biden never officially used the word super predator, but he co-authored and championed the 1994 crime bill, the same tough-on-crime machine that grew out of that fear. He's since admitted that parts of the bill went too far, and it hurt the very communities it was supposed to protect. But he's never apologized for the culture that it created. Hillary Clinton, on the other hand, did use the word. In 1996, while defending that same crime bill.
They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel.
She later apologized, saying, "I shouldn't have used those words." No shit, Hillary. No shit. And Bill Clinton doubled down at the time, defending the bill that made mass incarceration explode. Years later, he said the law went too far. But even his regret only came after the damage was irreversible, because by then prisons were full, families were broken, and the myth had done its job. The so-called super predator wave never even happened. Crime actually fell. Juvenile arrests dropped through the late 90s and into the 2000s. Even DeLulio, the man who coined the term, admitted that he was wrong and regretted how his idea had been used. But an apology doesn't erase what fear built. How do you apologize to kids who grew up criminalized before they'd even ever committed a crime? How do you apologize to the families that never saw their kids come home? That myth gave America permission to see black children as threats, not kids. It birthed zero-tolerance school policies that turned classrooms into pipelines to prison. It justified trying minors as adults. It normalized headlines that called a 14-year-old black boy a man. And even now, when the data disproves it all, the language never left. It just evolved. New words, same bias, same outcome. So yeah, some of them apologized. But the truth is, apologies don't rebuild what fear destroyed. The people who created that panic are still in power. The kids they criminalized are still paying for it. That's the real legacy of the super predator myth. It wasn't just about crime, it was about control. And once America found a way to make fear profitable, it never stopped cashing in.
I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to keep saying it for you dumbasses. I'm going to keep it plain and simple this time. Slavery is still alive in the United States of America. I keep on telling y'all that, and y'all keep on telling me I'm tripping. Now, if it's under this administration or any other administration, it doesn't matter about the people in office. I'm going to tell you what's happening. I just seen a video of some Haitians in the field picking string beans, right? They do this with Haitians, they do this with Mexicans, they do this with South Americans, Central Americans. It doesn't matter. When immigrants come here, they get promised that they will have shelter and they will get paid by the end of the season for working on the fields, plantations, crops, all of that, right? By the end of the season, they used them for everything that they could use them for while giving them the bare minimum, not even minimum wage, just shelter and food and maybe a few dollars a day. By the end of the season, they call immigration services. Immigration services come and get them. They detain them. They have to work while they're detained. These people are working for America while they're detained. After they ship them out from America, a lot of these times, they don't even ship them back to their country. Abrego Garcia just got sent to Africa. He was born in El Salvador. And not only that, they tried to get rid of not only due process, people can't even prove that they're citizens, but they were trying to get rid of birthright citizenship. These are all facts. This is not a conspiracy. This is not something that you can go against. These are facts. And until y'all wake up and stop trying to fight it, just shut the f.
There's a white lady on here saying that only white people that come from money are guilty of benefiting from racism and white supremacy, and that's actually not true. I want you guys to look up the Homestead Act, where 80 million acres was given to white people as long as they lived on it for, I think it was 5 years, and as long as they built a farm. Now, if you have a white friend and they're like, you know, they have like a big house, like their grandparents have a large house 9 times out of 10, and when they say, oh, my grandparents had this farm for 40 years or 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, even if they say 100 years, even though it didn't have much to do with slavery and it was mostly given to them to help expand the West, which was really just stealing land from Native Americans, but regardless, even though it wasn't directly linked to slavery, it's definitely directly linked to racism and white supremacy, because you know who didn't qualify for the homestead loans? Also, it is misinformation. I know it's not commonly known, but it's misinformation to say that, oh, a small percentage of white people in America actually had slaves or benefited from slavery. That's actually not true. With 25% of Southern white families owning slaves, you can imagine that number starts to grow greater as generations are born. For example, when the matriarchal and patriarchal figures passed away, the daughter got the slaves, the son got the money, and they split the house. Now, I want you to imagine, say the number is, 900,000, right? That number begins to multiply by 3, by 4, by 5, because as generations go on, and they had big families back in the day. They had large families back in the day. So that daughter and son go on to marry, to have kids of their own, and they have kids, and they have kids, and they have kids. And now they're accumulating all this wealth. They have this beautiful land that they've multiplied, I'm sure, because they made money off their slaves. They made money off the insurance. They made money off the loans and grants that they were given. So let's not play with statistics, and let's not play with facts. And also, when it comes to doing research and numbers, specific numbers, please never just see a number and say that is true, especially when it comes time to talk about like lynchings and like crimes against fucking humanity. Don't ever fucking believe it. I need you to use critical thinking and logic and a little bit more research. Just a little bit. Thought I'd say that. Look up the Homestead Act. Also, I forgot to mention, even though it is mentioned in my series called The White Woman's Role on the Plantation, just because some white people didn't have slaves, don't mean that they didn't desire it and they didn't benefit from it. And doesn't mean that they didn't support it. And their support granted them opportunities. It's called Yeoman. They were called Yeoman. Yeoman. And they could be a Yeoman woman, a Yeoman man. Long story short, they were just broke white people who wanted so badly to be in the graces of the upper echelon. And they did so by kidnapping black children. A lot of Haitian children were actually enslaved. And I need you to look up how those Haitian children came to America. They were free by the time they came here. Came here, got kidnapped, and became a slave by broke white people. So just because they did your white family didn't own slaves, don't mean that they didn't benefit from it. Okay? And also didn't support it. Let's be fucking real. Follow me, I teach Black history.
There's nobody that backpedals faster than a racist who realizes that they can't be racist with you, fellow white person. And typically, they're expecting 3 reactions when they do something or make a comment. 1 is that you're going to agree with them, egg it on, maybe reply back. 2, that you're just not going to say anything, and then they can continue to do whatever they want. Or 3, that you're going to argue with them, which is a reaction that they want as well, because they want attention. But if you don't do that, they immediately start backpedaling and, retracting what they say because they know what they're saying is wrong. And I can give you a clear example. I used to work at a gym, and early in the morning, I was behind the personal training counter, and somebody came up to me and was like, "Hey, can I get a Band-Aid?" I'm like, "Sure." So I'm going through, and the dude looks at me. He's like, "Make sure you don't give me one of those woke black Band-Aids. Everybody just wants something these days." And so I get up. I'm like, "Why would a black Band-Aid be woke?" He's like, "Well, I don't know. Everybody's just so soft they can't just have their own Band-Aids." I'm like, "Why do you care if black people have Band-Aids?" He's like, well, I'm not racist. I don't know." I'm like, "Okay, I never said that you were racist." I'm like, "I'm just wondering why you care so much about black Band-Aids. I mean, you obviously cared enough to tell me, so what's up with that? I don't care who has Band-Aids." He's like, "Well, it was just stupid. I don't know. I'm not racist." I'm like, "Okay, well, you came over to me at 5:30 in the morning to talk to me about woke black Band-Aids. Seems kind of fucking stupid, right?" And then he's just like, "Yeah, okay, just forget about it. I'm sorry." And he left. And that's really all it takes. If you don't give a reaction and just start questioning the idiocracy of their statements.
Real quick, what's the worst part of your job?
Realizing the day just started.
You mean it gets worse?
Ain't noon yet. That's when the thorns start making my hands bleed.
You ever been whipped?
You ever breathed too loud before?
That's what you got whipped for?
Yes, sir. Took one inhale too many. Ain't exhaled right since.
I got from this video, sometimes, like this young man said, black people's mistake goes into record, but their own mistake is actually a lesson, or it's actually something that always have grace, because they are blessed with having grace, and people that look like me do not have that grace. Sometimes I look at what has happened to black people and what is still happening to black people. All I can say is that I really do not know how you people pulled out, or you people have been, I don't know how, I can't even tell how you people have been surviving it. But one thing I know is that you have survived them for how many decades, and you are still surviving them. Sometimes I ask myself, how are my people living with them? How have you been living with them? It's something that I cannot wrap my head around, but it's something that you have lived through. You carry so much power that you probably do not know you do, because tell me, how do I live with a snake in the same house? I probably will run mad. It's impossible. I do not like snakes. I do not like, there are some pets I also do not like. So the fact that I know already that this thing is in this house, forget about it. That house is done. There is nothing that will ever bring me to the house, except I see that the snake has been taken away. Even after finding out that the snake has been taken, it will take you some time to, come back to yourself or to what. But I don't know. You all have lived with a snake and still living with them, managing them. It shows a whole lot. Just like the way, I decided to bring all these videos because one thing I know for sure is that everybody cannot be saying that let's say I bought a tuna salad, right? And 95% are saying that the tuna salad is not good. Maybe 95. Just 5% is saying that the tuna salad is good. Who are you going to run with? The 5% or the 95%? Everybody is saying the same thing about the same people. Even them are saying the same thing about themselves. That tells you a whole lot. But sometimes we look at it and we are like, what are we going to, my people are like, what are we just have to get, sometimes I see your comments in the comment section. You are like, we've learned to live with them and all that, which I absolutely understand, because it takes a lot of skills. It's not something that somebody will wake up one day and you learn. It takes a lot of skills to be able to live with them. You all have done so great. You all are still doing great. And I really appreciate your strength. Your strength is huge. Man, I will draw the car in here. Bye for now.